The 100 Greatest Console Video Games from 1988 to 1998 is a book published for people who love the history and opinions of classic retro video games. The book consists of over 270 pages and 100 games. Each chapter talks about a new game from that era and provides a background summary of those games. The writers each share their relatable experiences of nostalgic video games based on that chapter while providing great amounts of information about the game. The book has over 16 writers, with the main author being Brett West. Brett West is an older guy who started his career just by writing at a young age. During the pandemic, Brett wrote his own books, one of them being this one today. Brett West is a longtime retro gamer / collector whose collection mainly contains of games he only wants to play, and Brett sells the games he no longer plays, a form of collecting that most retro gamers wouldn't understand. Brett West has also fully written a book titled The 100 Greatest Console Video Games 1977 to 1987 on his own. Not to be confused with the book I'm talking about today, The 100 Greatest Console Video Games 1988 through 1998. Brett West, despite contributing to many books, has a small social media presence on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where he posts fun content and entertains others with his love of retro games. So I chose this book because at the time I needed another book to add on to a first one. That didn't really qualify the page count for this assignment. However, after looking at this book, not just that I realized that on its own it basically qualifies for the number count, but I also found it more interesting than my first pick, and I'm glad I picked it because working with Brett to make this video was a ton of fun. Overall, Brett has a really great concept for this book. It covers a lot of unheard games on popular retro games, and some might even consider shovelware. Yet, each of these games looks so interesting, it makes me want to try them for myself. One of my favorites in Chapter 6, page 22 was Bonk's Adventure. Bonk originated as a comic strip character in a Japanese magazine dedicated to a PC engine known as the TurboGrafx 16, a console that goes for over $200, yet I still want one. Even though I do not own a TurboGrafx 16 yet, the game was also ported to other consoles like the NES, PS2, Game Boy, and the Wii U. Its protagonist is a Bonk, a strong, bald cave boy who battles dinosaurs and other prehistoric enemies. Bonk's mission is to rescue Princess Za, a small pink dinosaur, who has been kidnapped by an evil King Drool, a large green Tyrannosaurus-type dinosaur. Even though that this chapter itself wasn't wrote by Brett specifically, one of Brett's writers said, "As you might expect from a cave boy named Bonk,
he uses his enormous bald noggin to headbutt enemies from the side, above, or below. If you can pull off an acrobatic spin attack from above, the damage to enemies is even greater. The most important move to master is the spin attack. It requires perfect timing to execute, but Bonk can float in the air, perpetually spinning in a circle if you can pull it off. This move is useful in staying above large enemies, such as level bosses, but it can also help you reach hidden areas housing secret items. It's certainly amusing to see Bonk jump up and use his head like a dive-bombing battering ram. But Bonk's adventure is chock full of humorous visuals. For example, he forgoes the standard hands and feet approach to climbing walls. Instead, Bonk uses his teeth to gnaw and gnash at the ground until he reaches his vertical destination. Consuming slabs of meat doesn't only make Bonk invincible or stronger, it first turns him an angry shade of beet red, with a mushroom cloud of smoke steaming out of his split-open skull. Less amusingly, when Bonk dies, he falls on his back and foams at the mouth, which is kind of gross. These are just a few examples of the charm and humor infused into what could have been a routine action-adventure title.
This is one of many games I found interesting, and I'm honestly invested in just from the description it has. Overall, Bonk's Adventure is something so stupid, yet off-putting, it almost makes you want to try it. That being said, I think we should finally welcome the original author of this book, Brett West. Brett will be answering my questions about this book and answering a few of my own personal questions. Thank you, Brett, for being able to record your answers. I really appreciate it.
All right, Jack's first question was, what are my thoughts on 1988 to 1998? Your main opinion. Now, I assume he's talking about the book, and he's probably also talking about just this era of gaming. I find it a fascinating era. The peak of the NES, 88, 89, 90. I mean, you had Contra, Super Mario Brothers 3, and so many other incredible games. And then the transition to 3D, sometimes very bumpy, sometimes extremely smooth and great. Just a fascinating era. It's just, as far as my main opinion on it goes, it was just an incredible time for gaming. And what really stands out to me is the console wars, the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo. Two of the greatest consoles in the history of the industry battling it out. What an incredible time. Maybe the greatest console war in history as far as quality of the systems and just the competitiveness. Amazing. My main opinion about this is that the Genesis versus Super Nintendo plus the introduction of the PlayStation, the PS1. So I guess I have two main opinions on this era. Just incredible. What a system that really brought gaming into the modern era with the 3D graphics, with the mature themes, with the more advanced storytelling and the cinematic visuals and storytelling and all of that. Just an amazing era. 1988 to 1998. Just fascinating. And number two, your team wrote the book during the pandemic, correct? What was that experience like? Yes, team, I did have a lot of contributing writers on this project, which was just amazing. It made the book is all the better for it with this variety of opinions, a variety of perspectives, variety of anecdotes, different people passionate about different games. Just love this aspect of the book. And yes, during the pandemic, I actually did a lot of writing, but writing during this time was so amazing, so cathartic. Like I said, just to feel productive, to feel connected online with some of my fellow writers, to get up and just feel productive and work every morning, and just I was very fortunate to be a freelance writer during this time, being able to do my job. So it was something else. It was tragic and sad, but it was also hopeful and fulfilling in some ways. Very mixed bag. Anyway, it was something else. It was something I'll never forget. Number three, during the main writing process of yours, did you have to replay any of the games you talked about? If so, which ones are your most favorite? Wow, yes, I definitely replayed these games. I wanted to get just a fresh take on each one, make sure they still hold up well today. Picking my favorites from this era is tough because there's so many great titles. Let's just go to the table of contents and I'll pick out a few favorites. You guys know Mr. Do's my favorite game, so that one's in here, obviously. The Super Nintendo version was released for home consoles during this time. I absolutely love Blazing Lasers, Castlevania 3. Let's see, Donkey Kong Country. My wife and I played that one for hours and hours. Such a great cooperative game. Let's see, The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, my favorite Zelda title. Mega Bomberman. Anytime my nephew Chris comes home from Japan, we play Mega Bomberman with my kids. Great 4-player action. Let's see. Road Rash is a lot of fun. Rock and Roll Racing. Probably not among my favorites, but maybe the next notch down. Sonic the Hedgehog. Holy cow, I love that game. And Sonic 2 is even better. Now, I put Sonic the Hedgehog in the original game in this book instead of Sonic 2 because it's sort of more iconic, and without Sonic 2, Sonic 1 wouldn't be in here. Love Super Castlevania 4. Yes, I've got a lot of favorites in here. So yeah, I definitely played these games, and I want the main thing with these 100 greatest books, so the game's still fun to play today. Now, he asked what my favorite chapter in the book is. Anything I'm particularly proud of? Yes, absolutely. I've actually got a couple of favorite chapters in here. One is obviously Mr. Do being my favorite game. It was one that I really felt passionate writing about and had a lot of fun writing. And then the next would be Streets of Rage 2. I loved writing about that one because I have such fond memories of playing Streets of Rage 2 with my son when he was young. There's the third page. We had a blast playing the 2-player option on that. We played it over and over again. And sometimes I'd say, hey, let's play the first Streets of Rage or maybe Streets of Rage 3. And 9 times out of 10, Ryan would want to play Streets of Rage 2. And recently, we have been playing Streets of Rage 4 for the Switch. And man, how cool has that been? They say you can't go home again, but with Streets of Rage 4, you could at least kind of recapture some of that lost time period when the kids were little. So that's been awesome. So yeah, I'm very proud of those chapters. Now we switch over to what Jack, thanks Jack, what he calls fun questions. He's asking me 4 questions in the fun category. He asked me, what's my favorite video game console today? Video game and console. So let's go to that. Like I said, Mr. Do. Favorite game of all time, but my favorite game of the modern era, modern in quotes, like Dreamcast to the present, like I've told you guys, is Maximo Ghost to Glory for the PS2. Phenomenal game. Just love it. Great 3D hack and slash. Brutal, difficult, challenging, old school. It's a ton of fun. Number 2, you're a collector of retro games, correct? Absolutely. If so, how much do you think your collection is worth? I have no idea. And any estimations of how many games you have? Now, I don't have a lot of the rares. He also asked me what's the rarest game in my collection. I don't have a lot of the grails. Really, I don't have any of the grails, like the NWC carts for the NES. I don't have, like Little Samson or Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, some of the most famous rare games. When occasionally I get a rare game, through some wheeling and dealing, swap, whatever, something I had a long time ago, I've sold some of my more expensive games just because I felt, do I want this pile of cash or this game? I haven't played this in a long time. Occasionally I'll sell a game if it prices itself out of my collection. I keep everything I want to play, and I keep all my pre-NES stuff, but I've sold some of my pricier stuff, and I've never actually counted the games in my collection, so I really don't know. I've probably got 50 or 60 consoles and maybe 2,000 or 3,000 games currently. I buy and sell a lot. If I would have kept all the games I've bought over the years for research for my books or just to play or temporarily or whatever, I would have probably over 10,000. But today I just probably have 2,000 or 3,000, just that many. Anyway, so that's that. The rarest item in my collection, I don't even know. I've got some pretty obscure Atari 2600 games. Technically, these are probably some of the rarest games in my collection because they're so obscure, they're so old, and people didn't, they didn't sell a ton back in the day. Like these Zonix double enders for the 2600. These are really fascinating. Each side has a game you can play, you could plug in. And then some of these others like Marine Wars for the 2600 and Pooyan, arcade conversion for the 2600. Skeet Shoot, extremely obscure. These aren't super valuable, but they do have a little worth, but they're rare. They're hard to find. Today, they're not very highly sought after, but they're obscure. And I mean, who kept those? Those are old and didn't sell a ton to begin with. So those are some of the rare items in my collection. Number 4, this is a big question. What made you want to write books in general? Could you talk about the full process? Now, as I've recently posted on my website, brettweisswords.com, and I've talked about before, I grew up loving books and loving reading. Even though I wasn't always the best student, because I would have a hard time sitting still or concentrating, I probably had ADHD, which you could probably, maybe some people would say I have that today, but it was undiagnosed back then. I was just wormy, as they said, because it was hard for me to sit still. It was hard to concentrate. But I always loved books, and I always loved reading, and my mom would take me to used bookstores, and we would go to thrift stores and things, and I would look through the magazines and books, and I bought Peanuts paperbacks, the great Charles Schulz. I bought Mad Magazine. I got Dynamite Magazine. The first novel I read was War of the Worlds. My parents had encyclopedia sets on their shelves. I would read those. I loved the Guinness Book of World Records. I loved different kinds of 100 greatest books. There's a particular 100 greatest science fiction book by Bill Warren that directly influenced my 100 greatest book. So yeah, from a very young age, I wanted to write book. I wanted to write. I wanted to be a writer growing up. We had a typewriter in the living room, and I would play with that, and I would look at all these reference books. So my interest in reference books and my interest in video games sort of collided, where I write video game reference books. Just a ton of research involved with these books, hunting down, I would order stacks of manuals online. I would buy games like crazy in order to play them. I'd use emulation, the whole 9 yards, just a ton of research, a ton of game playing. A ton of writing, and I started writing back in the 1990s, and I wasn't great starting out, and but yeah, it took a lot of time. So just advice: read a lot, write a lot. That's the only way to hone your craft. In fact, I hope some of this information was useful. I really appreciate you asking, Jack. That's very cool of you, and all the rest of you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you in another video.
Thank you again, Brett, for doing that for me. I actually made this video in my sophomore year of high school, and I don't know why it took me so long to post it. I have been kind of off of an editing phase lately, and I've been going through my older projects, and I saw this. It reminded me how cool it was to get a very popular book author in a video. I mean, that's awesome. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching, and huge thank you to Brett for recording these things for me back in high school. This was some kind of writing project I had to do, and my teacher was very proud of me of getting in contact with the author of my book of choice. More to come, and subscribe to the channel, as Brett said, and check him out in the description down below. Super great guy. It was great working with him, and it was very fun editing this video. And I will see you on the next one.